Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories and information found here can be found at our website at indiancountrynews.com. Here's the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native American news services. A 40-year-old Wolf Point, Montana man has been charged with first-degree murder. Robert D. War Club appeared in U.S. District Court in Great Falls March 3rd on charges of killing Richard Green in Wolf Point on April 20th, 2006. Roosevelt County Coroner Mark Erickson said Green was hit on the head and nearly knocked out, and then his neck was cut. Green's body was found in his workshop. Last year, War Club escaped from the Roosevelt County Jail, where he was serving a 3-year sentence on tribal drug charges. He was arrested 4 days later in Denver, Colorado. Relatives of 2 Crow members who died on the reservation have filed a lawsuit against federal officials, alleging the deaths were not properly investigated and prosecuted because the victims were Native Americans. Earlene and Cletus Cole and Veronica Springfield filed a criminal complaint during February in U.S. District Court in Billings, Montana, seeking undetermined damages in a jury trial. The Cole's son, Stephen Bear Crane Cole, 23, died February 2, 2005, in a shooting on a ranch on the Crow Reservation during a fight. A year later, a former South Dakota U.S. Attorney, Stephen K. Mullins, declined to prosecute the alleged shooter based on information from a federal investigation. He did not elaborate. Springfield's husband, Robert Bugsy Springfield, 48, who lived in Casper, Wyoming, died in a bow hunting trip in the Bighorn Mountains. He disappeared September 19, 2004. Hunters found his remains in October of 2005. Springfield's family waited about 2 years before the FBI released Springfield's remains for burial in November of 2007. Patricia Bangard, a civil rights attorney in Denver who represents the plaintiffs, said March 2nd that the suit alleges that there's a pattern and practice of not adequately investigating and prosecuting cases in which the victims are Native American. The Coles say federal authorities did only the most cursory investigation into Bear Crane Cole's death, despite a coroner's ruling that Bear Crane Cole's death was a homicide and that a non-Indian admitted shooting him. The American Civil Liberties Union is looking into the recruitment and hiring practices of a fire department in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The civil rights group's lawyer says the department has 2 minority firefighters in a force of 178 people, so the ACLU wants to determine if procedures have led to a hiring disparity. The investigation started after a Native American applied for the job but failed an oral communications test and was disqualified. A great disparity exists between the racial makeup of the city as a whole and the Sioux Falls Fire Rescue Department, where only 1% of the firefighters are members of a minority group. Robert Duty, executive director of the ACLU's office in Sioux Falls, wrote in a letter to Bill O'Toole, Sioux Falls Human Resources Director. Human resources officials and the fire chief say their policies are set up to hire the most qualified applicants and minimize the potential for ethnic prejudice and discrimination. Meskwaki tribal members in Tama, Iowa have rejected a tribal action that reduced their monthly payment from tribal casino profits. The tribal council action, which was already in place, was rejected last week in a vote by the full settlement. Last year, the council reduced the monthly payment from revenues from the Meskwaki Bingo Casino Hotel from $1,800 to $500 for adults and from $500 to $125 for children. Tribal elders said when they lowered the payments that increased gambling competition around the state and a nationwide economic downturn required the action. According to the Indians.com site, Senator Sharon Paraguay broke the law at her swearing-in ceremony before the Montana State Senate earlier this year. She spoke in the language Crow. Protected by senatorial privileges, Senator Paraguay, a member of the Crow Nation, delivered her address in the Crow language while family and friends watched from the Senate balcony. She introduced herself to the Senate in her native language to illustrate her support of bilingual education. The law Senator Paraguay violated at her swearing-in ceremony is Montana's English-only law, adopted by the state in 1995. Currently, 26 states have English-only laws in effect, either through statute or constitutional amendment. Proponents of English-only laws are working hard to get similar legislation or constitutional amendments passed in other states and in the federal government. The Montana English-only law mandates that all official state business be conducted in English. Most English-only laws ban virtually all uses of languages other than English by state and local governments. Since public schools are government entities, this means that only English may be used in general classroom instruction, putting bilingual children, especially Native children, at a disadvantage. Both Indians List and Senator Paraguay believe in the power of language in maintaining tribal culture and identity. You can find more information on that at indianslist.org. That's INDNSLIST.org. As its 10-year anniversary of Native community development and asset building quickly approaches, First Nations Ojibwe Corporation is making a bold long-term commitment to investment and growth in the Native community. They seek to empower Native people through financial education, savings programs, small business development, and home ownership. In a new 10-year commitment to action made to the Clinton Global Initiative, Ojibwe is promising to assist Native communities with building assets for the future and creating an environment in which First Americans achieve true economic sovereignty. Through training, capacity building, and technical assistance services, Ojibwe is at the forefront to increase the number of Native community development financial institutions and asset building programs serving Native people across the country. Specifically, Ojibwe and its partners, clients, and constituencies will address the four sectors challenge in Native communities that prevent the creation of jobs, new businesses, homeowners, and financially savvy Native people and nations. Those challenges include physical infrastructure, the financial infrastructure, government and legal infrastructure, and social and cultural infrastructure. More information on that can be found at oweista.org or oweesta.org. The University of New Mexico's provost, Susan Ortega, announced today that Kevin K. Washburn has been selected to lead the UNM School of Law as its newest dean and full professor of law. Washburn will begin his tenure on June 30th. A member of the Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma, Washburn is the first American Indian to serve as the dean of UNM School of Law. He began his legal education at UNM at the American Indian Law Center's summer program and later taught Indian law issues there as an adjunct professor. Washburn earned his law degree from Yale Law School in 1993, where he served as editor-in-chief of the Yale Journal on Regulation. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank our underwriters for helping us with this program. Join us again really soon. Miigwech.